a hectic day. Let me
Okay.
collect my phone. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think you'll also need your bottle, which is there on the other
Yeah.
side.
Okay.
Yep.
We're going live, right? Yeah. I have to
Yep.
keep so many things in mind. I can't manage my notebook also for the webinar. Yeah. Is there done? Okay. Hi everyone. I have partially managed few of my things, but I don't know if it will work at the end of the day when we end the webinar, because I think I should learn how to manage few things. As you can see, we'll started the live. Still, I am able to find few things. So after having two successful webinar, we are coming up with a third model, third webinar actually, that is for client management 101. So let's learn how to manage everything. As you can see, I don't know how to manage. So today we have Yash Shah, co-founder and CEO, Clientjoy, and this is Saptarshi, leading customer success from Clientjoy. So before going further, I'd like to mention one more thing. So do you know that it's always cheaper to retain an existing client that it's to get a new one on board? This means that it doesn't pay agency owners to overlook client management. Most full spectrum digital marketing agencies have begun working on a series of different techniques for managing client effectively and making sure that their interaction with both existing and potential clients remain as positive as can be. So let's see what we can learn from today's webinar. As the agency growth initiative, we have come here again with Yash. This is Saptarshi. Let's jump into the call. So let's see how it works. So today, over to you, Yash. But before that, we are here to learn. I am here to learn today. I am not at all good at managing. I will learn manage how to manage everything, manage my stuff, manage my clients, everything. We'll see from Yash. Yash, over to you. Let's jump into it.
Awesome, here. Thank you, Saptarshi, for that introduction. I'm Yash. I'm
Yeah.
co-founder and chief executive at Clientjoy, and today we're going to talk about client management, like basics of client management for agencies and freelancers. And the idea, the reason why we are doing this, I'll share some slides in a bit. But the reason why we are doing this primarily is because most of the agency owners do not understand that offering a good service, for running a successful agency, offering a good service is a necessary condition, but it is not a sufficient condition, right? And so you can only and only, there are plethora of other things that you need to do around offering good services to your clients, and client management is one of those aspects of growing and running a successful agency as well. And so the structure of this conversation is primarily, I have some slides prepared. All of these insights have been gathered from primarily two places. And so the first one is from so I used to run an IT service agency. We grew it from a 3 people team doing static websites to about 55 people team who are building web and mobile applications in SaaS, fintech, and e-commerce. And so there have been a plethora of learnings over that journey of 4 years. And then the second place where I'm getting this insights from is that on Clientjoy, which is primarily a client management platform or a client experience platform, we have more than 3,100 agencies and freelancers across 90 countries who are using the platform, and so we derive some amount of insights from that as well, right? So there are primarily two places where we learn from. And so let me share my screen, and Saptarshi, if you can add that into the stream for our viewers to
Sure,
see. Are you
sure.
guys able to see screen?
Yeah, yeah. So I have not shared it yet. I will in a bit. Thank you for your information, Yash. I hope it will be a helpful session, and we will keep it interactive as much as possible, because business it is necessary to manage your clients, manage your business's proposal and everything so on, and the same with the life. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. We already gathered few viewers. I think they were all waiting now for every Friday 7 o'clock to have join with us. So let me share your screen first. then you can go ahead with it. So yeah, your screen is visible, Yash, and yeah,
Awesome.
you can start now.
Great. So this is the topic that we're going to talk about, which is tips to manage clients such that they want to work with you more and often. And so this is the structure of this presentation. So it's primarily where we'll learn and understand what is client management and why is it important. We'll then take a quick look at client lifecycle. We'll also then go into depth around things to look out for while the client is going through that life cycle. And then we'll talk about three key aspects of empathizing with clients and how do you do it. We'll take up questions towards the end, towards the middle. It's completely up to you guys. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments wherever it is that you're seeing this. We are streaming this live to multiple places, and so you can just drop those questions in the comments, and Saptarshi will pick up those questions, and we'll have a conversation around it as well. So the first thing, right, which is what I already shared, which is primarily most agency owners and freelancers do not realize that offering good services is a necessary condition, but not a sufficient one to run a successful agency. Right? You could be a brilliant logo designer, you could be a brilliant copywriter, you could be an amazing digital marketing agency, or an IT service agency, or a design consulting agency, and you could offer great services as a part of your offering to your clients. But just just because you're offering great services, that does not guarantee success, that does not guarantee growth. It is absolutely important, it is a necessary condition. Your services have to absolutely be grade A, that's for sure. But there's a lot more up, as I shared before, there's a plethora of other things that you should do around offering your services and making them great. And client management, or efficient or better client management, is one of those things, which is what we'll talk about today. And so I actually, before I go down into the presentation, I actually made a list of about 5 or 6 different scenarios that used to happen with us when we used to be an agency, before we started building Clientjoy and started solving the client management problems for agencies. But these are the things that used to happen with us. And so if the following has happened with you, would be great if you can comment a yes wherever it is that you're watching this, right? So the first scenario, on the day of sharing this proposal, the client would say, we need to finish this project in 2 weeks, right? And then you'd keep on following up, and then 3 months later, they'll still come back to you and say that we are waiting for our internal approvals, right? And so, and this is story of a lot of proposals that are shared. That the client will reach out to you and say, we need to get this done quickly, and we already have everything in place, and this is the only service that we're looking for. And so just send across the proposal. It's a formality. We'll just sign it, and we'll get started. And then you think, and you make that as a part of your cash flow projection. You think that this project is going to start soon, but then 3 months later, they are still waiting for internal approvals. And this primarily happens because one of the decision makers on the client side tasked their internal team to get as many proposals as possible in as short time as possible, at the cost of better understanding of the scope of services, right? So there was some decision maker on the client side who asked 3 people to get 15 quotes or 15 proposals for website development. And so those are the scenarios in which this kind of a thing happens. The next scenario has this happened to you, where you took on a project with the client, and then you are already done with that first milestone of the client, and then you're discussing engagement for the future. And then while you're discussing the scope of work for your future projects, the client just asks you, shouldn't this already have been covered in our previous scope of work? This used to happen with us actually all the time. And so the reason why this happens is because the scope document or the proposal or contract was not clear on definitions, right? And so when you wrote certain terms, interpretations of those terms without those definitions in place was taken very, very differently by different stakeholders on the client side. And so they assumed that certain part of what you think is a part of the future scope was already supposed to be covered in the previous scope of work.
Exactly.
right?
So yes, I would like to take a quick pause here because we have got a similar questions like that only. Very interesting point. So the user asking that does delayed reply affect client relations? So the way you said that shouldn't this have been covered in the previous scope of work? So there might have a communication gap that happened. There might have been a delay in the communications. So how does that affect? So we have one users. He exactly asked that does delayed reply affect client relations? Can you share a way to fix that out?
Absolutely. And so there are a couple of things to unravel, right? Whenever there is a delay in reply, that is because of some certain reasons. And so the first reason, most often, the often given reason is because there's no clarity on what the reply should be. So the client has asked you a question about a particular service or aspect of a service that you don't even know how to answer. And so it was one of the questions out of like 15 questions that the client had sent out to you, and you answered the other 14 questions, and you just did not answer this one, or you wrote something that answers a completely different question and masked it to answer this question, right? And so the client thought that their question has been answered, you thought that you kind of dodged a bullet, and the conversations moved to the next step. And this all of this is happening at the pre-sales or sales level, and then this kind of comes back and then bites you into your butt once you are talking about the next scope of work, right? And so delayed responses or avoiding responses is something that can actually cause something like this. And so a very simple way to fix this is to not have any ambiguity. And this is a point that we'll cover during the presentation as well, is to have zero ambiguity when you are in the sales stage.
Nice, nice. I hope that the user got the answer. Very nicely explained. I have learned that. Let's continue with your presentation. Then we'll take off this kind of interesting questions in between. Also, we'll have a separate questions answer sessions by the end of the session. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Yash. Over to you. Yeah.
sure. And so the next scenario is when you're discussing timelines with your client. This specifically happens in IT services and design, right? So services that are a little subjective in nature, where the client would say, instead of deploying 4 people for 3 months, can you put in 12 people and finish it in 1 month? Right? I'm obviously exaggerating it a bit over here, but then these kind of requests, these kind of getting these kind of requests from clients is not out of this world or not unheard of, right? So the client will want to get things done as quickly as possible, obviously with as less money as possible. And so there are certain arithmetics and math things that they'll just ask you, um, which don't really mean anything, but these happen all the time. And so the reason why this happened is because the client was not appraised on the way services are offered, right? The stakeholder management has not been done properly if this kind of questions are still coming in. And so we had a template answer that we would give to our clients when they would ask a similar question. And so our answer would be something to the effect of, you cannot have 9 women give birth in 1 month, right? One woman will need 9 months, and you cannot shorten the time frame. There's some amount of gestation that is required, specifically in things that are happening on design front, on digital marketing front, on IT services front, where gestation is required, discussions are required, brainstorming is required, getting to know each other is required, right? But these are the kind of questions that will always kind of keep on coming up. The next scenario is where when we started offering SEO services and content writing services, like 15, 20, 30 days after the engagement, they would start asking the question, why are we not ranking number one on Google yet? Right? This is like the most asked question to any digital marketing agency. And so the reason why this happens is because expectation management of client was not done properly, right? Or probably the sales team over promised during the initial conversations, and then while it has come to fulfillment, there's under delivery, right? um, the next scenario is this is also something that most of the agency owners and freelancers, most of all, hear all the time, is on the day when the invoice is due, the client would just send out a message or a short email saying, could you share that invoice with us again? Maybe we missed it in the email, right? And this primarily happens because invoice scheduling was not done, invoice tracking was not done, automated follow-ups were not set up, different channels of follow-up were not implemented. And so you created the invoice, sent it out to the client, and then hoped that since your policy for payment collection is net 14, the client already knows that it will become due after 14 days, and then on 15th day when you reach out to them, they'll say, can you send it again to us, right? Instead of that, had you used an invoice scheduling software and tracking software and automated follow-ups, then just by the act of you sending out the invoice, there would be sending, tracking, and then follow-ups every 5 days, 7 days, whatever it is that you would have wanted, right? And so this impacts your cash flow as well. And so moving on to the next one, this is something that happens with every designer ever. This is not just an agency client relationship quip. But so this graphic that you designed does not give me the aha moment, right? This happens with a lot of designers, and so I don't have a response to this. We've faced this question a lot of times. We realize that not everything is an agency's fault. You can manage clients up to a certain extent, but not everything can be done. And this is just out of the ballpark, or maybe I don't know the answer to this question. If you know how to answer this statement from the client side whenever there is a delivery that you make, do write that in the comment, and in the comment below, and we can take it up and probably discuss it as well. I definitely do not have an answer to this one, right? And so what all of this primarily tells us is that the client is not always right, and it has to be the reason why the client is working with you as an agency is because they believe that for that specific set of service or outcome that they are looking for, they are not equipped. And it is better if they go out of their organization and then hire someone. It could be an individual or a company or an entity to do that job. And so that in and of itself means that a lot of times they don't know, they might not know what they're talking about. And so it's important to realize that the clients have to be managed and trained and taught, right? And all of this has to be done without them knowing it, right? Without them knowing that you are managing them and training them and teaching them, right? And that's the skill that client management kind of brings on board. And
Yeah.
and that is also how Nick Fury managed the Avengers as well. And so this is a person I take a lot of inspiration from. And so the way that he would deal with almost everyone on Avengers team had huge egos, right? Huge egos. And still, for a mere mortal to be able to keep them together and manage them without them realizing that this guy was managing them is a lesson in and of itself. And hence I recommend. And so the points that we have in this presentation is primarily how can we become Nick Fury of managing our clients, right? So that's
Nice.
the idea.
Sure. Yes, I'm sorry again. I'm here to interrupt you
Sure.
again. But when we are talking about the customer is not always true, we were talking about customers education. Being a customer success person, I couldn't resist myself without jumping into this conversation. So one of our users also asked that how to reduce client churn. But yeah, before coming to that particular questions, I would like to mention, yeah, customer is not always right, but we have to educate them. If we are on the yes side of the customers always, that is not gonna work for us. So yes, we have a questions for you that how to reduce client churn with that same
Sure.
note. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. So there are a lot of ways of reducing client churn, and so one of them is in aspect of client management. Like, the best way of not losing clients is just managing expectations, right? And so if you make sure that your expectation and the client's expectation are on the same plane, more or less, then there is a very, very less probability that they'll churn out of their own self. So like, there could be a change in circumstances of their company. There could be an internal change by where they might not be looking to engage with people outside of their organizations. And so those factors that are beyond the control of an agency, that churn is separate, and that is different. But if the client themselves is making a decision of moving out of the arrangement with you, then one of the key things that you may have missed out on, apart from a lot of other things, but one of the key things is managing their expectations, right? And so making sure that when you say something, they understand that exact thing. And so this is something that I've always maintained around communication, is that even in our organization, even in any organization, whether it is an agency or a freelance business or a product or a SaaS business like us, or generally in life, communication is never over when you have said your piece. Communication is always over when the other person has understood what you were trying to say, right? And so
Exactly.
if the
Yeah.
other person has not yet understood, if their understanding and their expectations are at a different plane, then you have to make sure that you communicate with them more and often, so that you kind of close that delta and close that gap and come on the same page.
Exactly. We'd like to take two questions. We have received a mixed reactions of questions on YouTube. So first thing, Jay is commenting on Facebook that for your information, YouTube is not live at the moment. Yes, our team is checking on that, but at the same time, we are receiving comments from YouTube. And we have received few comments on YouTube. Pooja is asking that how to engage more with our customer online. How? Yeah.
um, Great, yeah. So there are so if you already have those, so one of the things to remember and realize is that while we are saying clients, and I will repeat the term clients over and over again in this presentation, and so on and so forth, it's important to realize that ultimately you are working with other people, right? And so you may
Exactly.
have a large enterprise client, like let's say Citibank, or like General Motors or Ford or whatever, right? So you may have a large enterprise client, but you're still working with that particular individual, right? And
Yeah.
so now there's no way of engaging with Ford online, there's no way to engage with General Motors online, but there's a way of engaging with contacts and people who are working there and who are working with you on your project online. And so that is primarily just making sure that you regularly engage with their posts. You ask insightful comments, even though you're having conversations outside of social media. You kind of keep on engaging and keep yourself updated on things that are happening in their lives, right? Whether that is professional or whatever, or otherwise. And so I strongly recommend that instead of interacting and having engaging with clients online, identify people in those organizations who are your clients, and then interact with them. The benefit of this is twofold. One is that you still end up making a positive impression of you engaging with them while they are your clients. Second is that at some point in the future, that person from that organization will move to another organization, right? There's a good chance that in the second organization that the person joins in, they also have similar requirements. And if you build great relationships with them, then they will reach out to you, and they'll prefer your services or working with you over working with someone else. And I have seen this time and again, that when we build great relationship with a contact in a particular organization, we actually won bids where we had submitted a higher quote than some of the other competitors during for that project, right? And so the reason why this happens is because they know you, and the game of procuring services or selling services, the game of trust, right? If you have built trust with that individual, then there's a higher probability that they may approve a higher quote from you, over a lower quote from someone they don't know, right? So that's something that I recommend.
Very nice, very nice. We are working with people, so instead of uh, let's engage them more in a manner you interact. That's so nice. We have one mixed kind of reactions from Jamie Woods. She's on the aha moments. So the aha moments is on the hot cake right now. What we are saying. So on the aha moment, set up a team of people who can give feedback on your projects and let the client be part of that process. One person may like it, another may not.
Oh, fair.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is something that I
Absolutely.
would
Yeah.
also encourage. It's a great point here. Thank you for bringing that up.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Okay. So rest of the questions we'll take a few minutes more later. Then for Jay, who is asking that YouTube is not working, YouTube is working. People are commenting on YouTube. You can check it out and let us know in the comment section again if it is working fine or not. But our team confirms that YouTube is working fine enough. Okay, yes. What do you? Let's jump to the next slide. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. And so after like this conversation, one of the first things that I do as an engineer is create a 2 by 2 matrix, right? Whenever I think of a topic, think of anything, I kind of try and box them and try and classify them in a 2x2 matrix, right? And so one of the simplest ways of defining an agency client relationship is also a 2 by 2 matrix, is what I've found. And so it's important that you understand what whenever you are talking to an individual, it's important you understand what their motivations and their fears are, right? And so why are they behaving in a way that they are behaving, whether it is you or whether it is on the client side. And so this 2 by 2 matrix is fairly simple. So on the client side, you could either be talking to a decision maker or you could be talking to a contact. So a contact is typically not a decision maker, and so they are somewhere between the decision maker and the gatekeeper, right? Or and then on the your side, which is the y-axis, it is you. And so you could either be a contact or a decision maker, right? So you could either be an agency owner or you could be a salesperson in your organization, right? And so it's fairly simple to kind of map out what motivations and fears are if you have this 2x2 matrix. So let's say if you are the decision maker and if you are talking to the decision maker on the client side, which is top left, then the conversation could be centered around flexibility, right? Because both you and him realize, so the only thing that you're trying to identify when there are two decision makers talking about a particular project is whether both of you can support each other or not, whether both of you will be partners with each other or not. And so it's much more of a, as I shared earlier, it becomes much more of a game of trust, whether you can trust them and they can trust you or not. And so this is the most comfortable situation where you as an agency owner is talking to the decision maker on the client side. However, it doesn't scale well, because if you want to grow your agency, you cannot keep on having conversation with all the clients that you may have. And so then we move to the second bit, which is where you as a decision maker are talking to the contact from the client side, right? And as I shared earlier, contact is somewhere in between the decision maker and the gatekeeper. And so in those cases, it's important to remember that the contact has a fear, and that fear is that what if you don't deliver on what you are promising, and that causes a negative impression of himself or herself in front of their decision maker, right? And so in those cases where you as an agency owner are talking to a contact on the client side, you want to make sure that everything is written, approved and agreed upon, because the contact will not be able to convince their decision maker to be flexible or change things right there and then, right? Now the third scenario is where you are a contact. So let's say you are a salesperson and then you are talking to the decision maker on the client side, right? And so if you are a salesperson who does not have ultimate authority, but you're talking to a person on the client side who has the ultimate authority, then you may want to communicate value and make that as your core conversation, right? Where you need to make sure that your team member is you or your team member is effectively able to communicate the value of your agency if they start working with that organization, with that decision maker. And then the most difficult scenario, which is where the client contact is talking to your contact, or you, if in case if you are the contact as a salesperson, is where the central idea has to be centered around strong processes. There has to be strong processes, detailed operating procedures listed for all the edge cases, right? Because both the contact, like both the client side as well as your contact or your salesperson, don't want to take responsibility, and they fear that if something goes wrong, then it's their neck that is on the line, right? So that's it. It's as simple as this. If you are a decision maker talking to a decision maker, make sure that flexibility is what you're talking about, because that helps you build trust. If you're a decision maker talking to a contact on the client side, make sure that you communicate as well as possible, and make sure that everything is written down. If you are a salesperson or a contact talking to a decision maker, then talk about value that you can bring. And if you are a salesperson talking to a contact on the client side, make sure that there are strong processes on both the sides that ensure that there are no edge cases or flexibility required, right? So it's as simple as this. And so this is like the basics of empathizing with the person that you're talking to on the client side, and so understanding what their motivations and their fears are. So very, very simple. This is the stage of any client life cycle. So it starts with sales, and then once sales is done, moves to fulfillment, and then moves to revenue. Now I understand and realize that most agencies at a certain scale don't have a client life cycle that is as simple as this. There's not as much clarity in the movement of the client across all of these three stages. And so there is a possibility that while the client is in the fulfillment stage, they also give you another project, and while the client is in revenue stage, they may still be working on the project, and fulfillment might be going on. And so that is okay, but this is a broader stage of a client life cycle, which is sales, fulfillment, and revenues. And so when you're in the sales stage, understand what their needs are, what their timelines are, what their budgets are, and clearly highlight what your value addition is going to be, and why is this going to be a correct fit. We have done a separate webinar which we did last week on how to write impactful proposals, and the things that you should communicate while you are in your pre-sales or sales process. I'd highly encourage you to check it out. That in that webinar we go into a lot more detail about this specific aspect as well. The second thing is fulfillment, right? And so this is the most important and the longest part of a client life cycle. So typically you might be able to close a deal in like 15 days or a month. They may be there in fulfillment for 3 months or 4 months, and then they may make the payment and move to the revenue stage 15 days later. So fulfillment is where most amount of interaction of client happens with you or your agency. And so like the simplest of rules is to deliver what was promised, and make sure that those deliveries happen on or before they were promised. If you fulfill this, if you just try to fulfill this criteria, you and do this consistently over and over again for that client, there's no way that the client is churning, right? If the client can trust you on your word, when you say that this will be done, and it will be done by this time, and if you're able to do that consistently, it's just worth a lot more than them going out in the market and finding another agency as well. The third part is revenues, which is where the client actually has to make the payment. And so this is again another webinar that we did last week, which was centered around revenues, and how cash flow is king, how a lot of agency owners look at profitability, but cash flow is actually more important for growing the agency than profitability. And so in this stage, you may want to plan your revenue realizations such that your cash flow can be managed, and cash flow will actually help you grow your agency as well.
So again, I am here. So when we are talking about sales, closing, revenue, one of our user asked interesting questions: how to close a deal faster? So
Sure.
how? Yeah.
So sure. So this is a question that can take all evening, but I'll just share a couple of things with you, right? So reducing turnaround times, which is from the time that you have your first conversation to the time that they make their first payment, which is the advance or upon agreement payment, that is one of the biggest challenges for agencies. And a lot of opportunities and future cash gets stuck because they are not able to move a potential lead or client from one stage to the other. And so there are a couple of different ways of moving them. I'll talk about three very, very quickly. The first way is incentivize the closure. So offer them a discount if they say yes in 7 days, right? And make it genuinely appealing and promising. So that's the first thing. Incentivize a faster closure with your agency for that service. The second thing that you can do is track all the assets that you share. So track your, if you're sending a portfolio, if you're sending a proposal, quote, estimate, contract, whatever document that you're sending to your client, track all of that. And then as soon as those documents are opened, follow up right at that point, right? Because that's the best amount of time when you are fresh in their mind. That's the best time to follow up. So that's the second one. The third way to close deals faster is to automate things, right? And so make sure that the systems and products that you're using, they are able to function and have communication with your clients even in your absence. So these are the three key tips. Now there are a lot of things, and we'll have a separate we'll have a separate webinar on closing deals faster.
Yeah.
But for now, these three quick things
Yeah.
to help you close deals faster.
Exactly. So our last two webinars also we have discussed specific things. If you go and watch them again, you will have an idea. You can have a lot of tips and tricks what we have discussed there about closing deals faster. But for exactly closing deal faster, how you can do that, and all of these things will come maybe sooner than the later. So yeah, and one more questions we have got. Hence, we're talking about selling, closing deals faster. Uh, let's say there are a customer who have already sold, and now I want to do cross selling and upselling things. So one user asked us that how to do cross selling and upselling. So it's almost the same process, but then there are tricks that need to be there. Automate things, right, follow up on right times, and so on. So yes, would you like to answer this, how to do cross selling and upselling?
Sure, sure, absolutely. And so for people who don't know what is upselling or cross selling, it's fairly simple. It is primarily the act of, so let's say if a client has bought a particular service from you, upselling is the act of selling them a higher plan or a higher version or a more expensive version of that service. And cross selling is, let's say if a client has procured one service, then you are selling them another service which could be in a tangent. So to give you a very simple and quick example, it is just primarily, so let's say if I have if I'm the agency and you're the client, and if I have offered you website development as a service, then an upsell could be, you already have website development. What if we did that as a fixed cost project for 2 months? We delivered a website of 40 pages as an example. And what if you come with us for a retainer, where we maintain that website as well for you, and we also maintain that hosting for you, and we maintain that domain for you, or whatever the case may be, right? And so that's an example of upselling. In the similar place, if I have sold website design or website development services to you, I could cross sell. Let's say if I'm offering SEO services as well, or if I'm offering content writing services as well, there's a very high probability that if you bought a website development service from me, you're going to have a blog where you want to write content, and that content will have to be SEO specific as well. And so I'd sell those services. That's like a very quick understanding of cross selling and upselling for people who might not know. I'll share two quick ways of doing that. So the first tip of doing cross selling and upselling is identifying the right time to do that, right? And so uh, while the client is engaged in fulfilling the current project, that's the worst time to upsell or cross sell any of the services that you're offering them. While they are in the sales stage, that's also a really bad time. And so a great way, the perfect time for you to cross sell or upsell is whenever they achieve a particular milestone, right? So when they achieve a particular milestone, it could be, let's say, building a minimum viable product, or it could be, let's say, 30 pages out of the 40 pages are already done, and you're approaching towards the end, and they are starting to get into the time frame of thinking about what happens after this engagement. That is the perfect time to start doing upselling and cross selling, right? And so that's the first step. Identify what's the correct time to upsell and cross sell. And then the second thing is to ask them questions. Ask them questions which are related to your services. So let's say if you've bought website development service from me, I'd initiate a conversation around, what are your plans around doing SEO? What are your plans around doing content marketing? What are your plans around XYZ, whatever it is, a service that I'm offering, and try and understand from them that how are they actually looking at those things. Are they going to get it done in-house? Do they already have a vendor onboarded? Or are they out in the market looking for a vendor? Right. And so that's these will be the two key things around upselling and cross-selling.
Nice, nice, nice. I think there is, as I already mentioned in the beginning, there will be so much of learnings in the session. There are plethora of things not related to only client management, selling, cross-selling, upselling, closing deals faster. Yeah. So we'll not take questions right now. Again, we'll move ahead with Yash with you with your next slides. Then at the end of the slides, we'll take few more questions and then we'll wrap up in another way. Let's
Sure.
jump into slides. Yeah.
Sure. And so these are the three key things to look after during the sales, right? So just to kind of get all of you guys back into the context. So we are primarily going to look at three things that you need to look at in all of these three stages, right? So there are going to be actually a total of 9 tips to think about and to implement when a client is in a particular part of their life cycle with you. And so the first one is during sales or pre-sales. Just stop over promising. Make no as your default position, right? And so if a client is asking for something, instead of just saying yes because you're under pressure to do sales, say no, or say I'll get back to you on this, right? And there are three key things that you could do. So the first is subtle nudges. So in conversations, talk about how you handled similar clients or similar situations previously, right? And share with them what you did in those circumstances. The second thing is emphasize on value over and above your delivery, right? And so there's some amount of inherent value in your services, but the point that this refers to is what are the other things that are in and around your services that you'll also look after. And so I'll give you an example. So when we were doing website development, one of the things that we'd say is also that, hey, while we are doing this website development and our contract is for let's say 40 pages website or whatever the case may be, we're also going to set up Google Analytics for you. We're also going to set up Microsoft Clarity for you. We're also going to set up XYZ for you so that you can actually measure what's happening on your website, right? And so that talks about additional value that they have not paid for you, and you're still going to offer that as a part of your engagement. The third is as soon as you start working, or as soon as you think that you're going to start working with them, start a conversation on what happens once the engagement ends, right? What happens at that point of time, and think about the project from their standpoint, and start answer questions to yourself as well. And if you don't have answers, then ask them and have a conversation that where are they seeing, what metrics would be achieved, what kind of a scenario change would have come, and so on and so forth. The next one is during fulfillment. So while the client is in the fulfillment stage, automate updates, right? Share a project management board or integrate, do whatever it is that you have to do, but do not write update emails, because if you have to write update emails, you will end up losing certain important updates in those email threads, and nobody reads update emails actually as a client, right? So they'll you may have written weekly updates, and then on the 7th week they talk about something that was supposed to be done and already done and mentioned in the 4th week email update. Nobody reads that. So So create a project, use a project management platform, or integrate your internal setup in a way that the client has updates at any point of time. The second is highlight changes, right? So clearly, so during the sales period, you have already agreed to a scope of work. When it comes to fulfillment, it's very natural that while the work is happening, the client will come back to you and say that, hey, we did not foresee this situation earlier. However, now we actually need to make this change. And so even if you're considering absorbing those changes in the existing scope, highlight and mention those changes and create a list and keep it separately available for you, of all the changes that you've absorbed for that client. The third is, which is, this is the first question that I think Saptarshi also asked, which is, be paranoid about support. Most of the times, 90% of the questions that clients ask, they are quick questions that have very, very simple answers. If you are present to answer those questions, then the client actually thinks of you not only as a service provider but also as a support system, right? And so stay available, and then when you are delivering, ask them what did they think about the delivery and how could it have been improved. The next one is during revenue realization, is empathize. It's important to empathize with your clients, but it cannot be, should not be done at your cost. And so deal differently with your client. Do not set one process that is true for your agency that every client has to adhere to. Every client is coming from a different background and has different context of how they engage with service providers. And so have different processes for all of those clients, right, depending on where they are coming from. The second is plan your invoices. So during sales, while the sales is happening, share a plan of when are you going to raise invoices and what time. And the third one is super important, is that just make sure that this is one kind of a surprise that no client likes, which is receiving an invoice as a surprise. So they did not know that an invoice was going to come, and it just hits their inbox and they wake up, and it's just a panic situation on their side. So make sure that your invoice does not come to you as a surprise, right? And so that was all that we wanted to talk about in terms of client management. We looked at certain scenarios that happen between agencies and clients. A lot of times we looked at what could be the reasons behind them. We looked at how can you better empathize, and what are the central areas of conversation when you're having with your whether you are a decision maker or a salesperson, where you're having that decision maker on the client side or the contact at the on the client side. And then we looked at what a typical client life cycle is, and what are 3 tips on each of those life cycle that you want to always do to do better client management. With Clientjoy, we help you offer stellar experience to your clients, and make your agency future proof. We help more than, as I shared with you before, we help more than 3,100 agencies and freelancers in 90 plus countries grow their business and manage their clients. With Clientjoy, you can manage your leads with visual sales pipeline and email. You can send beautiful, impactful proposals. You can get paid on time with invoices and payments. You can manage clients with custom client portal, and we have more than 1,000 plus integrations along with custom branding. So it's hosted on your domain. It sends out email with your email ID, and it has your own brand colors. We are rated more than 4.5 out of 5 on Google, Capterra, and Trustpilot, and it's completely free to sign up. Just head over to clientjoy.io and check out the platform and see if it can help you offer a better client experience. And that's the key, right? You should be able to offer a great client experience. And so now I ask Saptarshi to take up, if there are any additional questions. I'd be happy to answer those questions as well while I move back to the studio.
There are, Yash. There are questions. So first thing, where we ended our question answer session, Harushi asked, "Is cross selling same as remarketing?" No.
No, it is
Mm-mm.
not.
Yeah.
So remarketing or retargeting is basically the act of offering similar products or similar services to people who have visited your website once. And so you can do that with Facebook Pixel, and you can do that with Instagram, and you can do that in a lot of different places. But but remarketing, so when it says marketing, it primarily means that it is happening before sales, right? uh, Cross selling or upselling happens after sales. So you already have acquired that as a client, you already have that client, you're working with them already on a particular service, and then you're selling another, a pricier version of that service, or you're selling a separate service that kind of relates to the existing service altogether, right? So it's
Yeah.
different, it's very, very different.
Very different. Yeah, exactly. Uh, Thanks for asking. I hope we are able to answer you. So we have plenty of questions now. That's being happy part of us. So Daniels are saying missed it. No, Daniels, you have not missed it. The video will be there for your reference on the YouTube and other social media platforms as well. Tanmay is asking when I encounter aha moment. Okay, so aha is the today's man of the moment. Sorry, uh, yeah. So when I
Sure.
encounter aha moment, I ask them to show me a design that gave them feeling aha moment to understand their psychology.
Oh, I
So,
tried this. I
okay.
tried this. Wait. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tanmay, for asking this and mentioning this. I tried this with my clients as well. And you know what they showed? They showed me Steve Jobs unveiling their iPhone. That's what they showed. That was what was shown to me. That was the time when they felt aha. And I was like, boss, that's a $1 billion company, and you cannot just compare and have want to have that same feeling. And so so thanks, Tanmay, for mentioning this. And so this was my experience where I asked them, hey, what design have you come across that made you go aha, this is something that I need. And they showed me Steve Jobs unveiling the iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. So here comes the same questions from another YouTuber. How to set proper expectations. So I think when they sent the Steve Jobs presentations, they expect a lot of from us, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe there we missed in the terms of setting a proper expectation. So how to do that? Yes.
And so there are a couple of ways of going about it, right? So so the first is knowing that you need to do expectation management, and then once you do that, there are a couple of ways. So the first way is to share with them your work that you have done previously, right? And so let's say if I've come to you for logo design, share with me that these are the previous logos that you have done, and so that subconsciously sets the expectation, right? Share documentation of previous work, share experience of previous clients working with you, and so on and so forth. So that's the first way of setting expectations. The second way of setting expectations is asking what we call as negative questions, right? Which is where the questions are asked to you. So if I'm the agency and you are the client and you are expecting me to do logo design for you, I'll ask you questions that are framed or structured something like this. I hope you are not expecting this. I hope you are not expecting this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you say this, do you mean this? And so on and so forth, right? So having so and then once you do this, often you just have list of those questions that you ask and qualify, to make sure that the expectation is there. The third thing is effective stakeholder management, which is where even if there is a bad news, you still share that with the client, right? And so you don't hide bad news from the clients, and you also become vulnerable in front of the client if that is what is required. But make sure, and that kind of also helps in building trust, and then bringing them to what your expectations are. So you have like two three things around setting proper expectations.
Nice. I think it answered the users. Next thing is that as we are talking about client management today, will that affect the in the ROI of the particular business? Because one of our users asked that on LinkedIn message, how will client management contribute to my ROI?
So here's this is the easiest answer that I've ever given. It's as you also pointed out during the start of the webinar, right? That it's almost 10 times harder to get a new client than to retain an existing client.
Exactly.
And if you're able to effectively manage your existing clients, then you don't, I mean, for that same amount of revenue, you will not have to get new clients. And so that is first ROI. You don't
Hmm.
have to do that aspect of sales. And so now you can focus on growth instead of filling the projects for churned clients. So that is first ROI. The second ROI that comes in is a happy, is a happy existing client gets you future clients, right? And so they also act as your auxiliary sales teams, right? And so the other two ways uh, it can give you returns on your investment. This is the easiest, simplest, smartest thing ever. It's a no brainer.
Nice. We have got few more questions. So, how to get testimonials from clients? That is the tricky one.
um,
So, make them happy, you will get it, obviously.
sure. No, absolutely. So when should you ask for testimonials, and in what form? And um, so when one of the things that I mentioned in the presentation is also that keep on taking, while the project is being fulfilled, keep on taking feedback from them in terms of how the delivery is going on, right? And what are they thinking about the delivery, and so on and so forth. So at any point of time, as soon as the client says that, hey, this was a good one, you surpassed my expectations, or anything to that effect, that's the perfect time to ask
Hmm.
them for the testimonial. Hey, thank you for saying that, made my day. Would you be okay to record this as a video and share that with me? Would you be okay to write this as a quote and email this to me? Just ask
Hmm.
for it. And don't it's a lot of people think that video testimonials should be very professionally done and shot and edited and stuff like that. Future clients don't care about the quality of video testimonials unless and until you are a very big brand. If you're a small agency, your future clients are not going to complain about the quality of your existing video testimonials. Just ask your existing clients to switch on their webcam and then talk about what they felt when they were working with you, and that's it. That should be it.
Nice. Yeah. So this is it. Like, help them the way we help them, the way we make them happy, the easier we get the testimonial. Very nicely explained. So we have got interesting questions here. We have so one thing I'd like to mention here, that when we start this initiative webinars with growth initiative, is that we took an initiative to help all of our agencies and freelancer. We started this webinar. The viewers, the likes, the comments we have got it was less. But in the third day of the webinar, we have a lot of present users or the viewers. They're still sticking with us and asking questions that give us a lot of motivation. And thank you so much to all of you for staying with us for the long time. And they're still with us asking questions. That's a small taste of success we are having right now. Okay, with that, another interesting questions we have, that how to break up and leave a project for a client. If yeah, so I think these particular user have recently some bad experience or deal
Sure.
not done kind of stuff. Yeah, so break up
Sure.
and leave. Yeah, interesting for Indians.
So this
Yeah,
is one of the most difficult things to do, right?
yeah.
Leaving a project, and then moving on, and so but there are certain circumstances where the situation is such that there's just no other way of continuing that particular project, right? And so like the simplest and the best way to break up and leave a particular project while it is going on as an agency is to be humble, and is to share with them with all honesty that why are you moving out of this arrangement, and don't go in with the thought process of just bursting onto them or telling them everything, or like being angry or anything like that, or writing long emails highlighting all the points and stuff like that. Just present your side of the story. Just present why it is impractical for you to continue, and so why are you considering moving out of that project as well. And so that's the only way that can be considered as a good way to break up and leave a project in the middle for a particular client. Unfortunately, it's happened with us. It's only happened with us once, and it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's very difficult thing to kind of communicate as well.
Yeah, I think, Yash, correct me if I'm wrong. Saying no is difficult. I understand completely that. But when you are saying that saying no will be beneficial for this particular client or project for a longer period of time, I think there we should not hesitate to say a no. Uh, so just is it am I on the right track? Like, let's say small startup agencies or freelancers, sometimes they will not tend to say no just because of FOMO. That
Yeah.
if I say a no, then he might said another one that he's not doing that or she's not doing that. Don't go there. So just because of that FOMO, I am saying yes, and then I am suffering. But instead of that, if we say a no straight away, I think that's better for the future. Yeah. So with that, moving to the next questions, can you cite an example of a client conflict? How do you deal with it? Okay, we have just described the similar things into
Yeah.
that. So I hope you have got the answer. So pretty much from the user side, what they have asked today. Anything from you, Yash, before wrapping up?
No, I think this is a brilliant session. We got more questions than we anticipated, and I think that I can still see that there are some questions that we may not be able to come to during, because there are time constraints today. And
Yeah.
so, but I'd love to thank all of you for asking these questions, and wherever these questions are, both Saptarshi and I will come to those places and answer those questions as well,
Yeah.
to the best of our understanding. And thank you for asking all of these questions, right? It is these kind of engagements is actually what motivates us to do this on a week on week basis and share the insights that we've gathered over the last 5-6 years of running the business and last 2 years of building our product as well. And so thank you for that. Again, just last thing, if you're looking to offer stellar experiences to your client, accelerate your sales, build a growth engine, check out clientjoy.io, sign up on the website. It's completely for free. You can take it out and use it for 14 days, and if it works for you, great. You will find both Saptarshi and I in the product as well, answering your questions if you have any, and we'll help you out, help and grow. That's the mantra that we are on. The agency growth initiative, as Saptarshi also pointed out, we are on a mission of helping 100,000 agencies grow, fulfill, and earn. And so, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us till the time. It's more than 1 hour, and we have still users with us staying. That's amazing. So we'll come next week on the same time. Thanks for today. Good night. Bye.